Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, or Tiger Tank 12, I'm gonna call me, I don't really care. And today we are going to just take a look at one of the tanks that I've played the most battles on my World of Tanks account. You guys have probably heard about something of a number of over 20,000 battles. Now, don't worry, I don't have 20,000 battles in one vehicle, but I have over 20,000 battles in World of Tanks, going to the mark of about 30k battles. Now, that's very, very much time invested into a game that has been out for 7 years now. So, which tank do I have the most battles in? And I think that answer is, yeah, I think it's pretty simple to answer that question. And you're looking right at the vehicle I've spent the most time in regarding playtime in World of Tanks. Now, does it mean that I had the most fun in this tank? Absolutely not. I love this tank, don't get me wrong, but not all of the games that I played in this vehicle were a lot of fun. Now, how come a premium vehicle is the most played tank in my game? Well, it's fairly simple. I have a lot of tier 10s, I have a lot of tier 9s, I have quite a few tier 8s, and all of those need credits. I played a long time without a premium account, so I was running around with just a premium. This was my very first premium tank that I owned in World of Tanks. Except for the T-34, but I got that one as a present, as a gift from Wargaming. You know, for exchange, the T-34 switched over, became a premium, while the M103 became the new tier 9 US heavy tank. And the same goes with the T-30. But the difference is just that T-30 changed over to the tank destroyer line and was the highest tier 9 tank destroyer for a while, before the T-110E3 actually managed its way into the game. And I received the T-110E5 for that vehicle. You guys probably know the story. It's been, I think that change has been 6 years now. At the end of 2011, beginning of 2012, they actually changed the rosters. So, the Löwe itself has pretty much gone through a lot of changes itself as well. It used to be this really, really great sniper with not very good hull armor. Everything went through the upper plate. The lower plate obviously was a main weak spot, but the upper plate was so weak that it didn't really matter where you shot it. It was like the KV-5 cupola, just the whole hull right down here. The turret always has been a pretty strong turret for a tier 8 heavy tank, except for the cupola on top always being a weak spot, and the cheeks right here. These cheeks, where the gun mantlet actually meets the turret, where the welding is kind of used separated because there are two different parts, the gun mantlet, the turret, and the gun. This was actually a very prominent weak spot of the vehicle, and as well as the lower part of the turret, like this very flat part right here, which allowed a lot of people with enough penetration to go through very reliably. And it was not the fastest kind of premium tank. So what was so special about this tank? Well, it was one of the first premium vehicles, and its gun was absolutely amazing. With 232mm of penetration at tier 8, you were able to go through tier 9 and tier 10 tanks. And that was, at the time, not a feat that we would see very often. Like, let's say the T-34 was an exception. It did have the 248mm gun. No, not millimeter gun, excuse me. 248mm penetration with its 120mm gun, if we look at it right here, but it did not have the same aim time and sniper value characteristics that the Löwe did deliver. Then obviously the one tank that was in the garage of every other World of Tanks player was also the KV-5. This thing was just not reliable enough to penetrate other tanks with a tier 7 gun, but still was a lot of fun. Still is a lot of fun to this date. Thank God they implemented I think preferential matchmaking for the KV-5. You'll never see tier 10s anymore, because that was just brutal when you were facing mouse or an E100 with that KB5, you had like the worst day ever. So, back on point. How many games did I actually play on my Löwe? And as you can see right here, we have it set on Mastery. And one of the tanks that does have the most games right here on my first list is the T125. 1,140 games played. My favorite tier 10 heavy tank of all time. Then the T34, 1,846. Obviously another premium tank that I adore quite a lot. But let's get into the battle tabs. And what you can see, there's a huge difference when you're going down the first three tanks. These are the only three tanks that are over 1,000 games played each. Like, I mean, okay, that's a hell of a lot of time, but the Löwe takes everything, like, just tops it all with 2,725 matches played. And my average experience on this tank is 638. My average damage is 1,447. So, not the best statistics if we look at them from a neutral kind of perspective, with only 53% win rate, you know, in over 2,725 matches. It's not that great, and only 30% survival rate as well. So if you look at it, it was my very first step. Like, this was my very first premium tier 8, and for me, I did own tier 8s at that time. It was not like that I got this vehicle and was my first tier 8 at all, but you know, I was a different player back then. I did not have the tactical sense that I have maybe now, or just, you know, the game was very different back then. I would love to make a little video and to make a throwback how the game was back in the days, but it's very difficult to find kind of material from back then, unless I would, you know, resort to videos and gameplay of, let's say, other people on different World of Tanks replay sites. And I'm not sure if I want to do that. I just want to keep to my stuff because I don't want to pick other stuff. And yeah, that's kind of my view on that. But if you guys would want to see some old World of Tanks replay, like kind of a nostalgia move for my part, because I've been in this game for 7 years now, I'm not sure if, for me, everything would be awesome even back then, but still, I know a lot of people will probably see some things that they would be really surprised about. Maybe artillery, who knows? Like, there were a lot of changes. So, the Löwe, 638 average experience. My maximum experience in this tank, 2,271. Not the most. I think the most I've ever received in any game was 2,700. Yeah, 2,729 in my patch in Korea. That was a crazy game. I think something with 6k damage or something like that in a tier 8. And that was pretty fun. I love my Korea as well. Great tank. Great country as well. And maximum damage in battle, 5,067. Not too impressive, not too impressive. But let's see how this tank actually fares in combat. How did the buff or the different buffs develop this tank into what it is today? The buffs were added just, I think, about a year ago, or maybe a bit more. So this new Löwe that a lot of people have played and have gotten to love only exists for about like 2 years. Only has been existing for 2 years. I have 2 marks of excellence on here. If we take a look how far away I'm from third mark, 89%, 6% still missing. I've not played this tank that much in the last few months, to be fair, because obviously when you have played so many games in one particular vehicle, like all the years through, you will not want to play it again. So I've been much more playing my new premium tanks. If we take a look at that, I've been playing quite a lot on my, I'm not even sure, my Scorpion G, very powerful premium tank as well. And I've been playing a lot more on my, where is that one premium tank? That one. The M4A1 Revel Reset. But you can see all of them don't even freaking compare at all. Like, this is just one, oh, holy crap. This is 1/20th of the games I've played on my Löwe, like much more than 1/20th. So much less than 1/20th. So let's jump into a game and see how this tank actually fares right now on the live server. So today's game is going to be a match that I had just very recently on TheFrXion, and we are top tier. And this is actually the perfect kind of environment to show what kind of a tank this Löwe is. Now keep in mind, I have made a review of this tank like 4 years ago. This was my very first premium tank review, I think. Or I'm not sure if it was the SC12244. But it is my most viewed video with about 8,400 clicks. It's very controversial in some parts, like a lot of dislike and likes on that video. Like the bars, I think a little bit tipped over to the like ratio, but that doesn't really matter because we're not making a little review of this tank. We're just looking at what I managed to do with this vehicle and how I play this tank nowadays. Like over 2,700 bells in this vehicle. I should have learned some things. I should have had some kind of skills in it, and I think this game shows it quite nicely that what this vehicle is capable of in with certain players, even with just the current setup, since the tank is very quite powerful at this tier if it does not face other tier 9s. But I will make an updated review of the Löwe fairly soon, because this tank has gone over so many changes, and right now the video that I've made about 4 years ago is just not accurate anymore, because this tank has been facing so many changes. It has become so great in some areas that I think the review from 4 years ago doesn't do it justice. And I thought, why not make a little, gameplay kind of video once again. I haven't done one of those in a very long time. Most of them have been kind of reviews of certain tanks, or just kind of little information videos about World of Tanks in general. And I want to fresh it up a little bit with some gameplays, since that is what you guys are interested about, right? Games that you had in this game, and it's just what I started off with in my channel. So we're facing off against the Löwe on the enemy team, and you can see this is not where you want to play a Löwe without any cover. Being out there in the front is just not good enough. Now your armor might hold up against tier 7 and tier 8 opponents, but if you're facing like tier 9 tanks like that out in the open, you're gonna have a bad time. Like, he has, I think, 120 millimeters of frontal armor. I think a little bit more now, since they changed the vehicle. And this is the one weak spot that the Löwe always had. The turret, the cupola on top, was always weak. You can still penetrate it, and I think it was quite reliable. And you can just see how you are working through these tanks with this kind of gun. 232 millimeters of penetration against these tier 8, tier 7 opponents. That is no problem. The reload time is not too bad. I think my DPM is quite high, since I do have one of the most buffed up Löwes that you can have. I have the best crew on this vehicle, and I think my reload time is something of 9.9 seconds with I think average damage of about 320. So it's a very, very nice DPM machine, at least on my side of things. And what you can see is just how we are knocking out these tanks that are out in the open. The aim time and the accuracy on this tank are just like, it's so satisfying to be playing a tank that is very reliable in all these aspects, and even has enough armor to bounce occasional shots. If you play it like smart enough, you can bounce so many rounds. And you can see we're just decimating the opposing team, excuse me. And if you play with your environment the right way, like I'm trying right here, they're not going to be able to do anything against us. And the turret is just, it's as long as you know where to shoot the enemy tanks, you will be fine in this tank. This is exactly what Wargaming have tried to do, you know, to give the players a vehicle that has a very reliable pen at higher tiers and same tiers. So we're up to 2,838 damage, bounced 1,340 HP worth of damage, and we have managed to rack some assistance damage of 1,322. Now, the biggest enemy of this tank back in the days used to be artillery, and as you can see right here, it is still a huge target. Artillery will have a blast. If you're getting flanked with this tank, you're gonna have a bad time. And the same goes for pretty much any big heavy tank, especially German heavy tanks. They're not too fast, but this one actually does seem to get better the older it gets. So it's like a fine wine, you know. You have to first store it a while to get the best taste out of it. And that's exactly what I would say this game was. A total bashing of the enemy team. We only lost like 3 vehicles. And they didn't have any chance because they didn't push the right spots. They didn't counter push any of us. And since I had the chance to, you know, dictate the pace of combat, and I could use the cover to my advantage, they never really had a chance of getting me out of that power position. And that is just what you can do in certain tanks, and I think that is what you can do in the Löwe as well. Since they added the frontal armor, like the thickness of the frontal armor has been increased, there are most of the times quite a few bounces. Like the lower plate is still fairly vulnerable, but if you look at like the turret, it's just not as weak as it used to be, and that is what I really enjoy about this tank. This tank got some love, and it totally deserved it. It's still one of my favorite premium tanks of all time. I know it's nothing special, but it still holds a very special part in my World of Tanks heart. So 3,678 damage, 1,580 damage blocked, and 1,584 assistance damage. Now this is a very good tier 8, tier 6, tier 7 game. Actually no tier 6, just tier 7 and tier 8. Because we were able to press and engage at any part because we could choose where we wanted to engage them. There are obviously games where this can be entirely different, but if you have the opportunity to choose where you want to engage the enemy, they're already in a really bad spot. Because once that happens, you could see on the Löwe, on the enemy team, that tank was not able to play out its massive potential because he was playing it at the wrong spot, and that happens. It happens. Now, we're not going to be talking about the sniper capabilities of this tank right now, because I think I'm going to make a new review of this tank, and I have quite a few games where you can see that in action. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little review of my, or just, excuse me, I'm already talking like that, of this little gameplay of my favorite premium tank and my most played tank of all time, and I hope I see you guys on the next one.